press and he would, distribute this thing. So the BTK killer was, a big, news item at that particular point of time. And since these letters were typed, they were difficult to trace. There was no handwriting analysis or anything one could do and things like that. Now, what happened was that this person, this was in the good old days when there were floppy disks and things like that. So this person was part of a particular church in that area. So one day he was using that floppy on that thing, and a temporary copy of that file got left on that computer, and an investigator saw that. And when he did the analysis, that BTK and the text and all was found in that. So that is how he was, done. So this was that computer or media forensics part. This is what it all started out with. So that is computer and media forensics. But today, as we discussed, most of our work is done on mobile phones. In fact, if I lose my computer, I'll be less worried. If I lose my cell phone, I will be more worried. And I'm sure, most of you will agree with that. In fact, you have practically your whole life on a cell phone. You have things like you have your banking, you have your communications, you have your social life, your social media, you have your pictures of you, your family, your home, everything. You have your close contacts, you have your far off contacts, you have your address book, you have your schedules, you have your calendars, you have your songs. You can easily, if somebody finds your phone, and in the phone what we do is we save our passwords so that we don't have to keep typing them. When you lose your phone, you're losing your life practically, because if somebody else has access to your phone, they have access to everything related to you. I mean, there have been cases when people have sent out messages to other people. Look, I've been kidnapped, or I'm stuck here. Send me money, and so many things. They're pretty common. But the whole thing is that if your phone is out of commission, or is missing, or is stolen, it makes immediate sense to change all your passwords, lock your systems down, ensure and monitor any activity on any of your online accounts, or what you is suspicious activity and things like that. So that's what phone forensics is also about, basically analysis of evidence that exists on these kind of digital devices. So we can actually have data that exists on devices or data that exists on networks. Now, things like we could have even GPS analysis. If you remember the 26/11 attacks in Mumbai, the people who came from across the border, they came by sea, they were not carrying cell phones. Why? Because cell phones get intercepted, for example. But what they were carrying were GPS devices. So they used GPS devices to navigate, and there were places were already, worked out, and where they had to go, and they just followed their GPS device. So that data which existed on the GPS device, gave a good indication of the routes they followed. And they could not avoid that because, if they have to get from point A to point B, they have to carry a GPS device. So that kind of a thing, So forensics again exists there. If you recall earlier, with the Korean Hancom product, I showed you they were doing drone forensics. In drone forensics, there is data about a drone. A drone is flying over a particular area. It is doing something. What? Maybe it is taking video shooting. Maybe it is, carrying some item. Drones have been found carrying weapons across borders. Their drones have been used for smuggling drugs. Drones have been used for delivering pizza, whatever. So when you do an analysis, you will find that there is a huge amount of data that exists on even small things like drones, which are working off a memory card. There are GPS coordinates. There are locations that they've been to. There are photos that they've taken. There are even details about who they've been connecting to, who has been controlling them. So things like that. So all that is important from the investigative perspective. Then there's network or internet forensics. Now what happens is that any traffic that travels between devices, and we live in a connected world, that goes over the network. So if I'm say sending some data from point A to point B, what is happening? It's traveling over the network. It's going in packets. So we need to analyze those packets. We need to know which packet is going where. Any other attribute. I mean, a lot of data is encrypted, so we may not be able to analyze that. But in a number of things, some of the data is sent in plain text. You might get username, passwords. You might get, pictures that are, embedded in that. You might even get fragments of pictures. So, there's a lot of network forensics and relational forensics that you can do based on that. Internet forensics is also there. I mean, you can go online, you can do email header analysis, you can find out about websites, you can find out about website ownerships, you can find out about the different social media activities that are going on, forensic of social media sites, social media profiles. How many profiles does a person have? How many profiles are being accessed using the same IP address? Today there's so much internet activity going on from mobile phones, for example. So if we are using, say, WhatsApp on a mobile phone, it is actually using the GPRS or Wi-Fi in the vicinity. So all that is, in all those investigations also involve forensics. Then there is database forensics. What are the activities happening and things like that. There was this time, when there was somebody who was doing an analysis and they were doing an audit. So they were doing an audit in a German bank, and they spent a lot of time and effort, and they could not account for some 75 pfennigs. I mean, in those days they were pfennigs. They could not identify. There was a 75 pfennig discrepancy. Then they could not figure it out after spending almost a month on that. So then they began to dig deeper and deeper, and then it became quite clear that there was actually a very systematic scam going on, which was going on, and it was happening from multiple accounts, and the money was being siphoned off. Small, fragments were being salamied off the coins or the change part of the different account holders. So nobody realized it, and it was all being aggregated into a single account, and then it was becoming very common. When all these things, they came in the news, and it became public, because it started in foreign countries. Our Indians also became quite intelligent about it. So we had cases in some of our Indian cooperative banks also where the same thing was happening. Somebody who was programming the software, build the software in such a way that the money was automatically being siphoned off to their account and things like that. So all those things are that things that happen. Then there is video forensics. I gave you a small example of that, where you would do things like face matching, dead body matching, tattoo matching, video enhancement, deleted overwritten video recovery, all those kind of things. You have things like image authentication, all those things. Then there's audio forensics, all similar. Somebody makes a call on a phone, a threatening call, and then what happens is that that threatening call, that person later says that no, it was a spoofed call, it is not me, and things like that. So what are we trying to do? What we are trying to do is establish that this is the person who made the call. Yes, no, black, white. So that's audio forensics, things like that. The audio forensics, there's a lot of research going on actually in Bangalore at one point of time, but then I think it died down. But again, there is a lot of scope for research in all these. There are, a tremendous areas where there are lacunae, there are, real world problems that need to be solved. There is approach for actually really innovative solutions that are required. And in the Indian scenario, we are application specialists. We are not pure researchers. So we actually derive our work from other people's research, and then we move forward and take it a little step forward. Not greenfield thinkers, but this is an area where there's a lot of greenfield opportunities as well. The kind of research that wins Nobel prizes. I mean, I'm not sure that anybody's got a Nobel prize in forensics, but this is a area which has that scope to where people can create an amazing impact by working in specific uh, research areas. And of course, I talked about face biometric forensics and things like that. So there are different investigator types, job opportunities. So definitely, there are computer security professionals, and a large number of your students would be headed in that area. They would probably, be in the information security domain, and if they're, a little more advanced, they would be in the digital forensics investigation domain. Then there are law enforcement officers. A lot of these law enforcement officers are self-taught, because especially, a number of them you will find have an innate talent. Like I see that Mr. Sharad was here, so he is one of those people who has that, uh, thinking on along these lines and things like that. And they are really good, but there are very few officers like that. They are people who are more occupied with the operational side of things. That armchair detective kind of aspect is a little missing from that perspective. That thinking part is not something they're focusing a lot on. So what you will find is that there is a demand for consultants by law enforcement agencies. So they hire people from Big Four. They hire people directly. They will even hire people on contract. Like the Ministry of Home Affairs is giving money to various governments to hire people to help them solve cases, because this was an issue that was raised extensively. So they start off by interns, and some of them have been regularized. So two of the people trained by us are working in different police forces and things like that around the country. Then, of course, there are forensic scientists. There are a number of people who work in forensic laboratories, and they are people who have extensive experience of handling the post-mortem side. Not the crime scene part, but definitely the post-incident analysis. So they have, in fact, in all the forensic science laboratories, they have backlogs of anything up to, there are some who have, backlogs of 2 years of work, and there are definitely, 4 to 6 months is very common across all of them. So they are all short remand, and they are very desperate for any kind of help that they can get, trained people. The defense, this is something that is actually overlooked, but in the a lot of these, let's say, work has gone on to the digital side. I would say that a lot of the defense and offensive parts have moved into the digital area, and the defense is also expanding its capabilities in this area. So you will find a lot of organizations across the country who are developing their skill set, developing their abilities, enhancing their capabilities, and they also have consultants to assist them. So again, these are private personnel who are hired from industry, people who have worked in this area, who have the requisite skills and the different qualifications and certifications, etc. in this area. I mentioned research, and I think it's very important. In fact, research is the lifeblood of any really successful nation. For us as a country, we need to focus a lot on the research, and uh, in fact, a partnership with the private sector helps in research from the perspective of not only funding but also research direction and also future commercialization of these research ideas. The key thing is that when research can lead to commercial utilization, there is a substantial upside for everybody involved. There is this aspect that when we are looking at research that can be commercialized, there is this incentive both for the researcher and for the people who are funding the research to pursue this further. So if you will see, all the best products that have emerged in any industry have come out from a partnership between the private sector, and the uh, academia. And and the government has from its side provided a sort of an umbrella and encouragement for this. And what has happened is that I mean, countries like Israel, who are at the forefront of innovation, and they spend, in fact, anything up to 5% of their, or 5 or 6% of their budget on just research, are really doing very well with this. Their researchers are all extremely focused, and they're producing excellent results. So there are all these, and then there would be others. I'm sure you can all think of some. So what are the skill sets that are required? Now, some of the different skill sets that are required are very strong fundamentals. What you need is a great understanding of hardware and software, law and technology. Now, the key here is that these are things that you're not born with. These are things that can be learned by experience, by learning, by practice, by spending time on this. So these are all acquirables, right? Uh, Next is great communication skills. Why do we need those? Well, in some cases you do, in some cases you don't. It depends, but they're always useful. Now, if you are working from the perspective of presenting your cases in courts of law, then you jolly well need to have great communication skills. If you are able to communicate your thoughts with clarity, that is crucial. If you are able to explain the concepts with simplicity, that is crucial. I was an expert witness in a case in Hyderabad, and the judge, I mean, when we were starting out, he mentioned, "Look, I am close to retirement, and my if I have to, send a message, I use my grandson's help. I take my grandson's help to send the message on my phone." So there, immediately it became extremely clear that this is a person who is not going to, appreciate the complex technical aspects of a case. And if anything has to be explained, it has to be done in a very simple and easy to understand manner. So that is where clarity of thought comes. So you have to relate the concepts in a manner which the other person can easily understand and imbibe and understand, in relation to the case. For example, we were talking about hash value. Now, what is a hash value? A hash value is basically a mathematical algorithm. A hash is a outcome of a mathematical algorithm. So what it does is it will look at a file, or it will look at a hard drive. It will look at the bits and the bytes in a particular sequence, and it will carry out a formula using a special formula. It will arrive at a calculation, and it will produce an output. And that output will be unique for that particular hard drive or that particular file. Now, when we create an image or a duplicate of that file for the purposes of analysis, that will also have the same hash value, because when we produce the same hash value, the only then will it be admissible in a court of law. So now, how do we equate this or simplify this for people to understand? Especially judges like that who have to use their grandson to send a text message. So to clarify and simplify this concept, so what I did was that I sort of emphasized the fact that it is like a fingerprint. Yeah, a finger. Yes, you are audible.
Sir, is the skill sets required for cyber security professionals and cyber forensic professionals are the same set of skills required?
Well, broadly, yes. Except that the communication skills for a cyber forensic professional are more important, because if they have to get into a court of law, or if they have to present the evidence, then those skills are important. Otherwise, yes, they are the same.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
You're welcome. Right. So that concept of explaining in the sense of that this is like a fingerprint, and this is something that the judge can relate to. He's very familiar with fingerprints. He's been seeing, this all his life. He's been reading about them. He's been, passing court judgments based on them. So we say, all right, so this is like a fingerprint, but only in the digital sense. Like a human has a fingerprint, and no two humans can have the same fingerprint. Similarly, two different files can not have the same fingerprint at all. And this fingerprint in the digital world we call a hash value. You see? So that is the thing. It has to be communicated in a manner where the thing is crystal clear. Otherwise, there is a lot of wasted effort for everybody. Then comes the experience in information security, knowledge of security policies. Now, this is good, like a number of you are running courses on, cyber forensics and information security. So they work closely together. And in the corporate world, they are crucial. In the government world or the policing world, they are not. They are bifurcated to a reasonable extent. I mean, you need to have an underlying knowledge, but you don't need to have a huge knowledge about, SIEMs and IDSs and IPSs and things like that in the Indian policing world, because it's more of a individualistic crime investigation perspective rather than looking at very large networks and things like that. So a lot of these police officers get by with that limited knowledge. But when it comes to a proper corporate investigator, one needs to develop that knowledge of security policies, security skills, and experience in InfoSec, etc. Strong troubleshooting and analytical skills. Interestingly, you need to look at what is it that has caused something. If you're seeing a particular artifact on a computer, then you need to be able to see what is it that caused that particular thing. One second, I missed that comment. Just give me a minute. Okay, yes. The question was, can a person switch to cyber forensics in the middle of their career if they have the knowledge to do so? Absolutely. One can switch, absolutely. Okay, so coming back, you need to understand, or troubleshoot and analyze why a particular thing happened. So let's say that I was looking at a particular folder, and the folder was called Keep. Okay. So I thought maybe it has got something to do with Google Keep, maybe it's got something to do with something else, maybe some software, I don't know. But inside that were a number of small images. And what was common among them was that not a single image was over 500 bytes. Okay. And I mean, they were not thumbnails, but they were images. And there were a number of other things also. There was some gibberish in things, but there were a number of this. So looking at this, one did not know, why. So one has to, now try and figure out why is it there. There must be some reason. This person, what was this person doing? So once we looked at and I saw that, then one said, why would somebody keep a thing like that? Why would some people keep fragmented or damaged images, for example, or things like that? Why would a person have this existing on his computer? So one began to dig, and one looked at the computer. One looked at the programs, and one found that there were evidence of a uninstalled instance of Wireshark. Now, Wireshark, as most of you are probably aware, is a network forensics or a network interception tool. So it can intercept traffic that is traveling over a network, right? And so this is a strong possibility that these packets or these fragmented images or whatever data that we are getting to see may have come out of Wireshark. So again, it's the same thing, a little bit of background, a little bit of troubleshooting and analytical skills and all that is required for building your foundation. Yeah. Then the technical skills, the ability to extract files and data from digital mediums such as disks and mobile phones. And I brought this last. In this whole list, I brought this last because all those other skills are equally important. And when we work as as teachers, we are only focusing on one aspect. But and I'll tell you this, I've been an instructor for guidance software for many years, and before it was acquired by OpenText, I'm still an instructor for them. Now, internationally, what happens is that when we teach, what happens that we will emphasize on the fundamentals first. We give them very strong fundamentals. The people, they understand the, simple things like what are the different types of interfaces of hard drives. I most of the students joining today will not know what a SCSI drive looks like. They will never have seen one because it has been obsolete for 14 years. But if you go into the financial sector or the insurance sector, you will find large servers which still have SCSI drives, which are still running, which have still got data. These are legacy systems, but they exist. And we have to be prepared for everything. So we need to know. So this is just an example. So the ability to extract files and data from digital media is something that comes, at the end of the whole thing. An understanding of data structures on a disk. What are tracks? What are sectors? What are disk partitions? What is logical block addressing? You must have seen that when you go into the market and you buy say a 1 TB hard drive, you must have all bought computers of different sizes, etc. You are now paid for 1 TB of storage space. You all want to store 1 TB of data. But actually what happens when you connect it to your Windows, and when Windows looks at it, Windows will say that this is actually only 920 gigabyte. What happened to the 80 gigabytes, which is a lot of space? Where did it go? You see, when you have paid for 1 TB, you are not getting 1 TB. You are getting only 920 gigabytes. So there is some discrepancy there. And this is standard. So you need to understand how data structures work. The way an operating system will store data is that it will say that 1 byte, or rather 1 kilobyte, is equal to 1024 bytes. Where the hard disk industry will work, they will say that 1 kilobyte is equal to 1000 bytes. Now, this is a simple thing. But because the hard disk industry has adopted this standard, what we will do is that we will find that whenever a hard drive is connected to an operating system, the operating system always says that the hard drive is smaller. Has any of you noticed this? Nobody? Okay, never mind. So then what about common file systems? Yes, please go ahead.
No issues, sir.
Okay. So there are file systems. We need to understand those file systems. What I remember when I got my first Windows PC. I mean, not Windows. It was a DOS PC. It was an XT. And what was special from an XT and a normal computer was it had a hard drive. And that hard drive is a huge one. In fact, I still have that hard drive. It is lying in one of our offices, and we have opened it out and we have put it in a glass showcase on the wall so people can see what it looks like. I mean, it was a big hard drive and it had only 20 MB storage, and it was very expensive. So, that concept of file systems were also designed around the storage that was available. So like FAT12 was designed for floppies, FAT16 was designed for those small level hard drives, and they could only address media up to 2 gigabyte, and they considered that a lot. And then came FAT32 when the sizes of the media increased. Then they had to change the operating systems to handle that, file systems to handle that. So they moved on. They got into FAT32, Windows 95, and all that stuff. So all that. Then came NTFS, then EXT2, EXT3, then NFS, UFS, Solaris, BSD. Now I'll give you an example. The skill sets that our people develop are unidirectional, and the employment opportunities also then become narrow. Now what happens is that suppose we have the capability to address things like Solaris and BSD and things like that, what happens is that suddenly opportunities will open out in some very large organizations. So your students get an opening to work in things like the different airports and things like that. You get an opportunity to work on things like Bhava Atomic Bark and different say yeah, ISRO and other organizations like that, because the kind of skill sets that they have are broader and are able to handle other things. So these kind of things are also all small things, but they create an impact. So again, if somebody is able to do say forensics on say Solaris, that sets that person apart from the 500 other people who are out there, because this person has that unique ability which nobody has. He commands his price. Then an idea of encoding and decoding. There are things like all these are regular ciphers and things. I'm sure you teach this in your colleges and institutions. There is this famous ROT13 rotational cipher and things like that. In fact, I don't know if you're familiar with the Second World War. The Americans, they with the Marines, they sent one Red Indian from the Navajo tribe with every Marine platoon. And these Red Indians, they would talk on radio in their native language to these other Marine platoons, and the communication could not be broken because their ciphers were so strong, and the Red Indians were not using any standard language based methodology. So they could get some amazing results because the Germans had cracked the encryption of their communication systems, and the success of their attacks depended on their secrecy. So, there's actually there was a movie made on this. I think it was called The Wind Whisperers or something. And a lot of these Navajo tribe people died in the Second World War, and what they called, the white man's war. But they all went there and they served with each Marine platoon, and they did a lot of stuff, and they saved a lot of lives. And of course, that's how they built the movie. So an idea of encoding and decoding. Then an understanding of the different sources of evidence. So there are a lot of standard things, desktops, laptops, CDs, DVDs, NAS, SANs, servers, databases, backup tapes, pagers, mobile phones, memory cards, archives, email. In fact, I remember there was a time when we used to have these Casio digital diaries. People would carry these Casio digital diaries around when they would be going around. And when they would be going around, what would happen is that they would store their, legal and illegal transactions in that. They would store their addresses and phone books in that. And all that would be stored there. Today, all that has moved to our cell phones. So technology has moved in a different direction, but those devices are still out there. Some of them contain valuable data, and they're with passwords. They're difficult to crack. I remember, there was a case that came to our what is now CFSL Hyderabad, what used to be GEQD, and that was a small digital diary, and it was protected with a password, and it was extremely crucial. And they put in lots of effort, and it was sent everywhere in the country to try and solve that, and it could not be cracked in the technology that was available in those days. So things like that also happen. So there are external storage devices, there are cameras, printers, GPS devices, etc. So what is the process that we follow? So before we start the process, we start with the basics. So what is disk forensics? It's the science of extracting forensic information from digital storage media like hard drives, USB devices, firewire, CD, DVD, flash drives, floppy disks, etc. And what is the process? The process is, the first is we have to identify digital evidence. In any exam or any incident that you land up, incident site that you land up with, the first thing that you have to do is you need to secure the incident area. Now, in a physical world, that means that, crime scene, do not cross type tapes, and, physically cordon off the area. Don't let outsiders come in. Don't let people go out. Cordon it off. Ensure that they don't happen. In the digital world, you need to do it in a different way. You need to ensure that no data comes in or leaves. So first thing is, of course, that all the people that are working on the systems, they need to be isolated from the systems. Then the networks need to be isolated so that there's no remote accessing to destroy data. Now, how do you do that for mobile phones? It's very easy, as you all know. You all have your iOS and Android phones, and you know that it can be remotely accessed. You know that people can remotely delete the data. So you need to be able to isolate that to secure the crime scene. So there are different ways of doing that. People use jammers. People will seize a phone and put it in flight mode, or people will put them in Faraday bags. A lot of stuff. So you need to then identify every piece of digital evidence before you can actually isolate it. What is evidence, what is not? I mean, you need to be able to figure it out. Oh, there is a clock lying there in that room. Okay, so is it digital evidence or not? So you look at it and then you observe that it actually has a pinhole camera. Now, is it digital evidence or not? Absolutely. So the thing is that there are a lot of things that one must observe very carefully and identify the digital evidence before one can actually do anything, right?
Yes, sir.
Then you go on to seize and acquire the evidence, follow it up by authenticate the evidence. So you need to be able to seize it properly in a manner that is going to be acceptable in a court of law. Then once you seized it, you need to create an acquisition of it, in the sense that you create a working copy for yourself, create a copy that you want to give to the suspect, create an additional copy in case your working copy crashes, and things like that. So you create multiple copies from the perspective of whatever the standard operating procedure has been defined in your organization, and then you work on that. So then you need, before you can begin work, you need to authenticate it. So at the time of seizure, you digitally fingerprinted it, you have checked its hash values. So that same hash value, you need to authenticate to see, yes, nothing has changed, and you need to document that I authenticated it and I saw that nothing has changed. You need to ensure that the evidence is preserved in every way. There was a case when the hard drive was cloned, and the source drive was 100 MB, and the destination drive was 120 MB. So what they did was they did a bit by bit copy. They cloned it. They wrote that 100 MB onto the 120 MB drive. Now, when they began to analyze it, they began to discover a lot of evidence, which was coming up, and that guy kept saying, "No, it's not on my hard drive. It's not, there on the original. How are you getting this?" It turns out that this 120 MB hard drive had been used for a previous case, and there was a lot of other evidence already there. And when they overwrote that, only 100 MB was overwritten. The remaining 20 MB contained a lot of data, which was also coming up when they were doing the analysis. So you need to be, extremely careful from that perspective. You need to authenticate the evidence. Then you need to preserve the evidence, right from the stage where you seized it to the stage where you are analyzing it, and then after, you might have to produce it later, say internal or later. Then you need to analyze that evidence and then you need to report the findings, and you need to document. And the documenting has to be throughout the process. You have to document, right? Okay, so you need to identify the digital storage devices. There are lots of them. You need to do that seizure, as we mentioned. There are a lot of seizure tools available. In fact, if any of you are interested, I can give you a list of open source tools that you can use. You can send me an email, and I'll email it or whatever, and everybody can use that. Then different kind of storage media. Transportation is crucial. You need to pack things when you're transporting it in a manner that it doesn't get damaged. There was one law enforcement agency. What they did was they sent us 4 hard drives. They put it in a cardboard carton and they sent it by through one. They gave it to one constable. The constable came in a bus, and then he reaches our lab and he gives us that box full of hard drives. Now, all throughout the route, that hard drives were like rattling and shaking and things like that. And by the time they came to us, what happened was that the hard drives were like in non-working condition because they had been banged about so much that they were dead, and that was the end of the case. So one has to be extremely, careful. One has to have the, proper storage things. You want to store multiple hard drives, have a place to store them, transport them safely. You want to carry phones. You need to have, Faraday bags to prevent the signal from leaking or externally being accessed and things like that. Authentication of the evidence. You need to do it both, at the seizure place and at the cyber forensics laboratory. You compare the hard drive, and from at this time of the source and the image that you create, you check that and then you match it, and then this will ensure that the content of the destination media is an exact copy of the source media. How many of you have seen a hashing exercise? Have you ever seen how a hash value is created? Would you like to see?
Yes, sir, sure.
Okay. Yeah, so after lunch, I'll just show that to you. And we'll create a particular file, and then we'll calculate its hash value. Then we will modify that file, and then we'll recalculate its hash value. And then we will change the name of the file, and then we'll again calculate its hash value, and we'll see what is happening. This will, for us, it will become extremely clear what happens when things when we are looking at hashes and things like that. Yeah. Okay. So preservation is crucial, proper labeling is crucial, packaging is crucial. So, we have to ensure that nothing happens. So we need secure storage. We need to keep away from highly magnetic sources. And we must always have more than one copy of the image, just in case. So again, verification of evidence is extremely important. Before we start the analysis, we need to verify. At the time of seizure, we need to verify. After the analysis, again, we need to verify. So when we do all that, sorry? Yes, ma'am.
Small clarification I want.
Yeah.
Specifically told that may notice.
Yeah, so what normally happens is that, not really, but I'm sort of guessing at it. Please repeat it.
Sir, am I audible now?
Yes, now you are.
As we repeatedly experiment on original evidences we have collected, so now making it a number of copy, won't that be called as a duplication of the original aspect?
Yeah, that is true. In a way, it is. But what we have are specialized devices that allow us to create forensic images in a right block manner. It's an excellent question. This is like the key point of the whole preservation exercise. what happens is that when we are doing imaging exercise, we create a copy in a write block manner. So there are hardware devices called write blockers, which we connect between our examination computer and the suspect media. I will show you pictures and all that. I will show you everything. And when we do that, what happens is that these things will automatically prevent any writing. Again, there is a standard procedure for this. I mean, this is all part of detailed training. But what happens is that you will carry out a validation procedure of the write blocker also before you use it. Now, once you connect a suspect media to a write blocker, any writes, accidental or intentional, are not going to happen. And no data will change, no hash value will change, everything will remain permanently the same. So you can connect the original, connect it to a write blocker or a disk duplicator, create working copies. Then once that is done, the original is then sealed. And when police works, what it does is it will seal it in that proper packaging, and then they will cover it with cloth, and then they will use the wax seals and all that. The typical thing that you will see in any police operation or government operation. But when that seizure happens, then that is sealed and it will only be opened in a court of law. So then we are now working with the next best thing, which is an exact copy of the original, which we call the image copy or a clone copy. So the image copy has the same hash value as the original, which we have verified once or twice. And after that, the original is sealed and kept, and we work on the image. And that image is provided under section 65B or whatever. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay, excellent. Welcome. So this is that verification and analysis part where that we will analyze that and we will check the hash value of the evidence and we will compare it and verify it with the image that we have taken at the time of acquisition. That acquisition which we have done, and I will show you that process also. That acquisition that we have done will automatically allow us to use that other copy. And the other copy also we will not use directly, we will use with a write blocker again, so that the copy of our original is not tampered with. The hash value remains the same. Because for us, that hash value is the cornerstone of our investigation. We are doing an investigation, our fundamentals are based on that. So for us, it's extremely important to have that, right? Then once we have that, then we will go into the analysis stage and then we will collect, the evidence from within the hard drive. So if we are looking at something like, suppose the hard drive is, using BitLocker, so then we will, either put in the password and open the BitLocker again in write block mode and then analyze the content. Or if there are, other encrypted files within it, we would like to identify those. We may need to crack the passwords. If there's deleted data, we might want to recover that. If somebody's hidden some data, say suppose I'm a suspect, I have on my desktop a file called mysecrets.xls. You are an investigator, a digital 007. If you're walking past my computer and you see a file called mysecrets.xls, what is your first instinct? I'm not there in front of my computer. You will automatically, instinctively go double click and open it. You will want to see what is inside there. Now, I as a criminal will not like that to happen. I will say, no, I can't have my secrets leaked out, So what I will do is, I will put a password to it. But then what happens is that you might even copy it on a pen drive and later on take it back to your system and then, use some password cracking tool and crack it. So I think and I say, all right, let me rename the file. Instead of calling it mysecrets.xls, let me rename it to windows.dll and copy it into the Windows system folder. And when I need to look at the file in the future, I will simply go to the Windows system folder, right click it and open with Excel and open that file. Right? So I'm basically hiding that file. But when it comes to forensic analysis, forensic analysis will identify this as a misnamed file. It will say, look, there is a major attempt to try and hide this particular file. So from that perspective, we will be able to identify such files. And because somebody has put in the effort to try and misname a file, it becomes important for us from an investigation perspective. And then lastly, we have to report the findings. Now that is crucial because when we are doing an analysis, reporting is the key. We need to be able to provide a report that succinctly and very clearly explains what is has everything about the case. It should contain details of the examination, the hash values, the object that has been seized, its serial numbers, maybe a photograph of it. If there are any distinguishing marks on it, that there's a scratch on the surface at this particular location so that you can prove yes it is the same product later, and so on and so forth. So it needs to be put in simple terms and it needs to be backed up with the evidence, but it should be made in a way that a non-technical person can understand the content of the report. So that is crucial. Again, documentation is required at every step of the process. So if you look at this little flow chart here, there is the preparation stage, the securing the scenes, survey and recognition, documentation, and all that. All those things, they need to be done throughout. So, you document the crime scene, you document the various, evidence collection, you document the preservation, you document the communication, you document the examination, you document the analysis, you document presentation. So throughout all that, there is documentation in every step of the way, right? So this is the session before lunch. I hopefully you people found it important and useful.
It is very informative and very much useful.
Good. I'm happy to hear that. In case you people want a copy of my presentation, I will just give you the link. I'll put it in the chat, I think. Wait.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Sir, I
So,
have one question, sir.
yes, please.
Sir, as the legality point of view,
Yeah.
you were just giving me one example where
Sorry, ma'am, I lost you. I can't hear you. Once again, please.
you were just telling us
Amulya, madam, your voice is not audible.
Yes, sir. Okay. Am I audible now, sir?
Sorry, yes. Once again, please. Yes. Now you are.
Tell modified that legal point of view, if the person says this is my my system where the problem has been raised with respect to some office work where I store all the office details in the different disk, so you are not permitted to check my private disk, some sort of questionality or some sort of privacy he applies and asks for us, saying that we are not permitted to examine the C drive or the specific drive where he has kept his private details. So how do we deal with such kind of things?
See, the key is that what happens is that you need to first understand the privacy concerns and laws related to that specific thing. Now, there is also the conditions of contract between the company and a person. So, if the company has said that you're not supposed to have private things on a company computer, say the C drive or particular folder, then the user has no right because the computer has been provided by the company for company work and the user is not supposed to keep personal data on that. So, that is the first thing. Second thing is, if there is no such thing, then there is the and I mean different lawyers will be able to guide on this because this is a very touchy subject. What will happen is that there is definitely going to be case law that okay, that a user has a reasonable expectation of privacy. But then what is privacy? If that person has, say child pornography in a particular folder and he's saying you can't accept it because, access it because it's my private folder, well, he's already, in contravention of the law. And in case you are aware or you have reason to believe that this exists, then it is a matter for law enforcement and very severe and serious action. So then his expectations of privacy go away because it is a crime against society. So again, there are a lot of fine lines here. It depends on a lot of factors.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Sir,
You're
sir,
welcome.
thank you. Sir,
Yeah.
will we have lunch and shall we rejoin?
Yeah. What time?
Yeah, 3 o'clock, sir.
3 o'clock. All right.
Yeah.
Perfect.
My dear
Oh,
participants, I think you have enjoyed the fabulous speech delivered by his eminence, sir, and it will be continued from again at 3 o'clock. Sir have a lot of some concepts, and he is very expert in all these imaging techniques and also all this cloning, and it takes time. And sir will continue definitely at 3 o'clock, and he will answer all your queries, and we can spend very leisure time even after the session also. Sir, thank you very much, sir. We will rejoin at 3 o'clock after lunch. Dear
okay.
participants, have a lunch, have a nice time, and come back and rejoin our session again. Thank you very much. Thank you all.
Thank you all.
We share new link. Please join the link.
Okay. All
Sir,
right. Thank you.
sir, okay, sir. We
Yeah,
will
yeah.
join at 3 o'clock.
3 o'clock. Oh, okay. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Good day. Good day. Thank you. Good day.